Hello, everyone. Welcome to the All Day Football Show. I'm your host, as always, Jackson Kellogg, and today we'll be getting into the preseason Week 2 matchup tonight for the Patriots as they are going against the Philadelphia Eagles. Last week, they won against Washington in a kind of close game fashion with a last-minute 91-yard rushing touchdown by Ramondre Stevenson sealed the deal for the win. There were many good things to take away from that game, but today we'll be looking at things to watch for tonight's game. So starting off, as always, quarterback competition is going on. Both quarterbacks played last week. For Cam went 4 for 7 in about 2 drives that he played, and Mac Jones played for a significant amount of time as well. Mac Jones looked great in his starts. When watching that game, it felt like you were watching Tom Brady play, as it was the normal McDaniels offense. It just meshed. Mac Jones' stats could have been even better, as there's a Jacoby Myers catch that was ruled incomplete that was actually completed. Bill Belichick just decided not to challenge it for a teaching moment. Remember, this is the preseason. You want to give your players chances to work in different scenarios. You don't necessarily care about the win-loss mark. And then there was a deep ball drop by Christian Wilkerson from Mac Jones. It was placed beautifully. Couldn't have been a better throw. And that should have been like another 40 yards and a touchdown on top of Mac Jones' stats. So Cam Newton, on the other hand, it was rough watching him play. He did go 4 for 7, but the problem I had was, on his first drive, the drive went as such: 2-yard run down the middle by Damian Harris, incomplete out route to Jonnu Smith. It was thrown at his feet, and then a near sack by Chase Young that Cam somehow got the ball away on into the ground. So that just gave me flashbacks and PTSD of how the Patriots played last year. I don't want to see it again, so I'm hoping that Mac Jones starts to develop here as we can start to incorporate him into the starting offense. He's not going to start the season, and if he does, that would be insane, and I don't think that's the best decision. I'm looking more at Week 5 when they come off the loss to the Buccaneers, which is going to happen. But this matchup tonight is going to be key to watch, seeing how both Cam and Mac play and seeing the progression and who's doing well in camp and whatnot. Next up, we've got the wide receiver battle. So you've got Jacoby Myers, Nelson Agholor, Kendrick Bourne. Those are your dominant 3 receivers right there. You've got Gunnar Olszewski, who's going to make the roster most likely as a punt returner, special teams guy. So that's 4 receivers right there, meaning you've got 1 to 2 more spots for receivers. And that leaves right now as the best 2, N'Keal Harry and Christian Wilkerson. N'Keal Harry has been supposedly having a great camp, and then after playing almost 3/4 of the game last week, recorded only 1 catch for 4 yards on 1 target. N'Keal Harry's problem hasn't been catching the ball, it's been getting separation to get open and be able to have a ball thrown his way. He hasn't had that. His route running is terrible. He can't get any separation. And it's not even good enough to where you could throw a 50-50 ball. Then you've got Christian Wilkerson, who's been dominant in camp as well. He played well in last week's game, recording six catches for 30-something yards. But he's had a bit of a drop issue, and there are many occasions during training camp and last week's game where he's dropped good passes. So these guys, they're fighting for roster spots. N'Keal Harry requested a trade earlier in training camp. That didn't go well for him. And N'Keal Harry's looking like a real bust as of right now, as he hasn't been able to live up to that first-round draft pedigree. So if he can show something tonight against these Philadelphia DBs that he's supposedly been absolutely owning in joint practices, then we can start to make an argument that N'Keal Harry is worth a roster spot. But at the moment, he's only a rotational depth piece as he hasn't done enough to crack the top 3 receiving group. And Christian Wilkerson looks more like a developmental guy. He might make the roster on the bubble, but he's going to have to offer some special teams worth if that's going to happen, as his drop issues might kill him in the end. Then you've got other guys lower on the depth chart there that are competing, like Isaiah Zuber. Marvin Hall got released recently, so he's not there. And you've got Trey Nixon, who was drafted in the 7th round this year. So you've got a bunch of depth guys there, all fighting for a roster spot. It's going to come down to who offers the most special teams value, most likely. Flipping over to the defensive side here, so we've got Stephon Gilmore at the number 1 corner. J.C. Jackson is the number 2. Jonathan Jones in the slot nickel corner spot. Then it starts to kind of get iffy. You've got Jalen Mills in kind of the cornerback 4 gadget type guy. And then from there, you've got maybe one more corner spot. And that's going to come down to the 3 players shown here. Jawan Williams on the left, Michael Jackson in the middle, and Miles Bryant on the right. So Jawan Williams was a former 2nd-round draft pick back in the 2019 draft. This is his 3rd year in the league. He's been more of the gadget type player as well. A lot of the depth defensive backs for the Patriots are gadgets. They're not necessarily guys that if somebody goes down, they're going to come up and make a start. Jawan Williams has had some issues in camp, and he's also had some good moments. He's been kind of up and down, but he's definitely been the best of the 3 shown here. Michael Jackson has kind of been on the lower side of Jawan Williams. He's more of the general cornerback, but he hasn't been able to perform well enough to be able to crack into more of a rotational spot. And Miles Bryant is more of your slot corner safety type guy, as he's played in both roles, and he was on the roster last year, so he also and offers special teams value. So his chance of making the roster, I'd say, is higher than Michael Jackson, but Jawan Williams, if he performs well in games like he did last week, then Jawan Williams' spot might not be as up for grabs as it was once thought to be, as he definitely hasn't lived up to his 2nd-round draft pick value. Same draft as N'Keal Harry. Both those guys just haven't really panned out the way that they should have. But it's a good thing that there's better players above them in both spots to help kind of make up for that. Where Jawan Williams was drafted, J.C. Jackson was undrafted the year before. N'Keal Harry was taken a 1st-round pick. Jacoby Myers and Gunnar Olszewski were undrafted. So there's kind of give and take there, where it's lucky that Belichick finds some diamonds in the rough. But in terms of this matchup, this is going to be interesting to watch for tonight's game against the Eagles, as these guys will kind of be facing Travis Fulgham, Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. They're going to be facing those lower receivers for the Eagles, as the Eagles wide receiver group right now is a competition of who's going to get starting reps. So these 3 corners here are going to have to figure out how to handle some of the Eagles receivers who have talent, they just haven't produced per se on the field. So that's going to be an interesting matchup to watch the Patriots corners face off against the Eagles wide receivers. The Patriots front 7 looks amazing going into this year. So many different pieces on there that look like they're going to be dominant and just overall monsters on the field. The problem is 2 of these former Michigan players, Chase Winovich on the left, Josh Uche on the right, pass rush outside linebacker types. Chase Winovich is more of the get to the quarterback pass rushing guy, where Josh Uche, he does that, but he's more of an off-ball type linebacker, can drop back into coverage, more versatility than Winovich. The problem is in that linebacking group, you've got Judon, Hightower, and Van Noy all guaranteed starters, so it's going to come down to who's going to be able to get more reps in that spot, as Chase Winovich's spot has kind of been taken over by Judon Van Noy on the outside pass rushing. Hightower's coming back to play in the middle. You've got Jawan Bentley still there to play the inside linebacker run-stopping role. So it gets hard to see where these guys come in, and then you've got even more players to rotate in between Anthony Jennings, the third-round pick out of Alabama last year, and Ronnie Perkins, third-round pick out of Oklahoma this year. So many different outside linebackers. One thing I'd like to see and we might see tonight is Josh Uche kicking it inside to play the inside linebacker role with Hightower, and possibly when they run a 3-4 during the season, you've got Uche lined up next to Hightower, where Hightower is going to push down, rush the passer, stop the run, because he's one of the biggest middle linebackers in the league. You're going to have Josh Uche kind of hovering in the middle, trying to make a play on a pass. So I'd look to see that as more kind of a role. Winovich is looking more and more, he keeps falling down the depth chart. His problem was he just shoots for the quarterback, and his run defense has been terrible. And that's not something Belichick likes. Belichick likes his players who can be on the field all 3 downs. Uche is one of those players. Winovich is not. So with a very deep and filled group of linebackers, these guys are going to have to show tonight why they should be on the field come the start of the season. And lastly, one of my favorite battles to watch, and will be fun to watch tonight, is the kicking battle, as Nick Folk is still injured and will not be playing tonight, which leaves another full game for undrafted kicker out of Michigan, Quinn Nordin, to come in and kick for the Patriots. He's been balling out in camp, very few misses, came in last week, went 3 for 3 on field goals, only missed an extra point though, so that kind of put a damper. That was his problem coming out of college, was that he had the power, just not the accuracy. But we started to see that accuracy last week as he boomed a 50-yarder with plenty of room to spare. And it was right down the middle. So if he can keep that up in tonight's game, where he's accurate on kicks, not missing extra points, we could start to see a very clear-cut winner of the kicking group, as Nick Folk is older. The power in his leg isn't necessarily there anymore. So if Nordin can play and be accurate, then we're going to look to see the undrafted player streak continue somehow magically after only having one undrafted player on the roster this camp. And it was a kicker, and he's still somehow going to make the roster, it seems. But I'm excited for tonight's game. If I'm going to predict a score, I'm going to say it will be a Patriots victory 24-12. We've got some funky scores in the preseason always, so that's what I'm looking for. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated. If you do decide to watch the game tonight, hope you enjoy, as I will be watching as well. And I will see you all in the next video.